if everything is all right. Should be. It's Friday. Yes, it seems we are live. All right, let me finish up setting up the stream and I'll be right with you. Okay. All right, it's Friday 2:25 p.m. my time in Central Europe, and you're watching Tactical Advice. My name is Ty, it rhymes with hi. I'm a fractional CTO, a coach and a mentor, and today I want to talk to you about what the tech team can do when the business really needs to achieve a certain objective. It's a question that I recently got from a young CTO who just stepped into the role. And the question was, Ty, what can we do to help the business achieve its outcomes? And I think that's a very important question because a lot of the times, whenever we step into the role, into a leadership role, we just see, okay, how can we implement all the initiatives, all the things that are bothering us, that we don't like or we would love to change, like introduce a new technology, improve the deployment, improve the developer experience. And those are all fantastic opportunities, but they might not be what the business needs right now. It's still important to schedule those in the long run, but it's also important to figure out where and when to do them. And then that becomes as a part of one of the pillars that I teach, which is strategic thinking. Have the initiatives and then figure out in what order do we execute them so that we achieve the maximal on the business goals. So let's talk about tech and business. How do they intersect? How do they relate to each other? So, I'm glancing down because I made a nice little paper sketch right here of what I want to talk about. What I see a lot of the times in companies is that the conversation between the CEO and the CTO is not very efficient. The CTO perhaps knows a lot about the tech stack, the engineers on their team, some technical difficulties that they're thinking about. Okay, how do we scale the database? Because it's seeing a lot of traffic. There's a deployment issue. We want to improve the developer experience because there's onboarding a new team member is really hard. And the CEO is thinking in terms of, we need to achieve some revenue goals. He has a concrete number in mind. We want to perhaps improve the perceived value of our product in the market, or there's a lot of competition coming in and we need to solidify our position. And those are all business outcomes. Now, when business and tech are disconnected or they're not speaking the same language, where the tech is a black box and the business is not very good at explaining what they want to achieve in terms of goals and objectives, but they're talking in terms of features. Hey, we need this kind of program, we need this kind of feature, then things fall apart. You cannot really have an efficient organization pursuing the right things when this disconnect has happened. So the question that I got is a fantastic one. What can the tech team do? How can we help? And if the business, on the one hand, knows about the objectives that they want to achieve, they have an outcome in mind, then the tech team knows how to get there. Not alone, but they have a lot of insight in terms of what features are easy to develop that would help achieve that outcome. How can we make the product more reliable if we want to if the business, for example, wants to increase the perceived quality of the product because they want to go more upmarket, then quality will need to go up. And the tech team knows exactly where it's currently failing, where the weak points are, and how to increase that reliability. Now, another important thing is that business knows about the objectives and what they want to achieve, but they don't know how expensive it is to pursue each of the options. The tech team does. It's a lot of the times very hard to estimate and put a concrete number of like this will cost that much and take that much time. That's rarely how it works. But you have a gut feeling. At least you can identify within the tech team what are some easy wins that we can do. So that's worth pursuing. High value. No, the business says this is high value, and then the tech team says, okay, this is quick to do. So when you find and identify one of those pairings, that's an opportunity for you. So now we can talk about concrete goals, right? Let's say I divided it into kind of 3 outcomes, or let's talk about 2 for a start. Let's talk about revenue goals first, and what can the tech team do to help achieve the business those revenue goals, right? So when the business has a revenue goal in mind, it means that we need to sell more often, or just sell to more people, right? Increase the order size, increase the frequency of how many times people buy, so their lifetime value, or just get more customers. And if you want to get more customers, then the tech team needs to work with marketing to come up with a good initiative to capture new audiences and figure out, okay, how do we bring new people in? What is also important is to, once you're bringing people in, into your landing pages, if you're not converting them efficiently into buyers, you are losing revenue and you're wasting your ad spend. Which means that the landing pages need to be optimized in such a way that they will convert. And there is an intersection of IT, who's building that, marketing, and maybe product. And all of those 3 need to figure out quickly how to optimize the flow so that we start getting an influx of people on our landing page and start converting them into sales. Now, the tech team is instrumental here because they know how to quickly iterate. And if they cannot quickly iterate, if there's something that will take a long time to implement that, for example, marketing or product wants to do, it's the tech team's job to tell them, we would love to do it. This is unrealistic because it requires a lot of work. And here's the important part. They need to offer alternatives, not negativity. Sorry, still recovering from a cold. That's why I've been off a little bit. So the tech team needs to offer alternatives. If the tech team is defensive and they're just saying, we have a lot of legacy, it's going to be difficult, we're understaffed, it's not looking good. Then the business gets demoralized, everybody else thinks you're the problem in the tech team, so it becomes worse. That's why I'm teaching tech teams to be proactive in this, to proactively identify opportunities and bring them forward, to say, we identified a pattern in our user data that we can exploit, right? That's the job of the CTO. And if you take a look at an organization that's even bigger, that has perhaps a CTO office, this is what they would do. They would try to understand what kind of data we already have and then derive new products, new ways to use that data in order to drive revenue, in order to drive growth, retention, increase the lifetime value of the customer, and so on. So the tech team needs to offer more solutions. And here it's important to negotiate, right? If marketing wants something and comes with you with a feature, it's your job as the CTO to say, what are we trying to achieve? Oh, we want more customers. How much more? What's the goal? So that we can measure against it. And then we can give you better suggestions of, we can build quick and easy landing pages, we can test them, we can integrate them. Or, if it requires changing the checkout page, and that's very heavy, maybe we can, just for the sake of an experiment, build that quickly in another tool, integrate Stripe, go past the process, and just focus on a certain campaign that bypasses the difficult to change ecosystem that we have. So those are the kind of solutions that the tech team can proactively bring to the table. And this is when conversation finally starts to happen, because now the business can negotiate and say, all right, I want this. You said this is too expensive. Okay, let's go with option B then. And then they feel empowered because now you've brought them choices. They can pick and choose. And you can measure against how well you're doing. Another really important thing is to always keep in mind in the tech team is like, how can we deliver 80% but way sooner? What are some corners that we can cut? And there's a caveat there because you need to be careful. Because if you do that too long, it becomes unsustainable. But it's still important to have that mindset of, if the very survival of the business depends on you bringing the numbers up or hitting a revenue goal, then worrying about tech debt is maybe the wrong time. Because if you're trying to implement it perfectly, your company might not be there in 6 months. So it's important to find a way that gets you 80% of the result for 20% of the investment. It's always about trade-offs. And you should do that in such a way that you don't back yourself into a corner. I was watching an interview with Jeff Bezos, and he said that there's 2 types of decisions. The ones who are the reversible decisions and the decisions that are really, really tough to reverse. Like if you choose a language on which you're going to build your whole internal service or monolith, if you decide to build it in PHP and then go to JavaScript or Go, that's a really difficult, non-reversible decision. It's going to be really hard to course correct. Whereas if you go with landing page A or B, there's no point in overanalyzing. You just go with one. If it doesn't perform, you pull it. You go for the second one. No big harm was done. So it's important to identify what kind of decision this is. Is it a big decision, or is it a decision that's easily reversible? And then the problem that I see a lot of times in companies is too many people are deciding on the reversible decisions or the minor decisions. Those you should really delegate and empower people to take action independently with the knowledge of where do we want to go. What's the outcome that we're all pursuing, and then let them do their own thing. Because if everyone needs to agree all the time, then you're not making any progress. So now we've kind of seen how tech can proactively help business decide and figure out what they can buy, essentially. And if you're a freelancer, that applies to you as well, because you need to give the client options. It's always the same thing. Internally, if you're the tech team, then your client is product, sales, marketing, the CEO. Those are all your clients. And they want to buy something for you. They want to buy a business outcome. And it's up to you to figure out how you can get them that outcome in the best possible way, so that it's not late, it's not overpriced, but it's just right for what they need, that it provides a lot of value. So that sounds easy, but it's really hard to do, because it requires a different type of thinking. It requires you to step and learn about the business that you're in, but also to learn to talk to the decision makers and get them to give you their vision, their goals, their outcomes, and not the feature requests. If all the time you're getting only feature requests, that's a good indication that it's time to try to start asking more questions. And now we go into the how. How do you, as the CTO, have those conversations, or a tech lead, or basically on any level? Well, first is to be proactive. As I said, a clear indication is if you're all the time hearing just about features, then you're probably stuck in this mode where people are expecting something from you. So ask lots of questions. Figure out the why behind the ask. If somebody comes with a feature, ask them, what's it for? Test assumptions. What do we know? What do you know about this? Why do we need this? Why do we need it now? Why not later? That will help you uncover the outcome behind the ask. So if the ask is a feature, why do we want it? Oh, we want the revenue to go up 20% by the end of the quarter, because we have a really important investor meeting and we wanna make sure that we have solid growth. Wow, now that's something you can work with, as opposed to, hey, ship us this feature, because that feature might prove to be wrong, and then you miss the actual goal that the CEO had in mind. So really important, ask lots of questions. Make sure that you understand the reason behind the ask. And then it's really important to have those conversations, like I said before, to give them options. And it's all right to say, I don't know, we'll come back. Like, you don't need to have the answer on the spot. It's perfectly fine to take all the info, ask lots of questions, go back with your team, explain to them the outcomes that you're seeking, get some input into the problem domain, and then formulate a couple of proposals. Okay, we can do option A. It's going to be quick and dirty. We can do option B, which is more proper, but it might have bigger returns. So how much risk do you want to take on? And the CEO might say, oh, this is really risky. We want a limited test, but it needs to give us a fast indication if this is working or not. Okay, so now you know if you're spinning up a separate microservice or integrating something that's outside of the normal flow just to test it and then see, okay, it's performing well, and think about how we can pull that back into the main system once it reaches a certain scale. Maybe you just leave it as a separate thing and it lives there for a time, right? But it's important to have those conversations. The business needs to have something that they can purchase from you. That's one thing. Now, I've been mostly explaining it from the CTO's perspective. From the CEO's perspective, it's also really important that they know what their tech team is doing and what they can ask from them. Because a lot of times what happens is the CEOs, the heads of products, they're asking the tech team the wrong for the wrong things. They're asking for the features, for example, not the outcomes. And this is a really important part to get right, because if the leaders, chief product officer, CEO, head of marketing, are talking in terms of their vision, objectives, KPIs if you want, and their actual valuable KPIs that the business needs to achieve in order to grow, and they're effectively communicating that to the tech team, to the marketing team, then you will have a feedback loop where even the developers who just ultimately do the actual coding grunt work of implementing a feature know the reason behind the feature. And that's always going to perform better than if they just do the thing because a Jira board says you need to cross item 1 TB135 from your list, right? That's the other extreme. But if they know, if everyone in the team knows what the outcome is that the team is pursuing, then they'll think about the problems differently. They'll come up with the tools to measure success. They'll create dashboards that say, okay, how much are we selling? Put a graph right there, see how many people are visiting our site. What's the conversion rate, right? Are we seeing an upward trend? Every day, every morning, look at the graph, say, team, we are going up. Oops, we deployed something, it's going down. We need to figure out the cause. And those things do not happen unless you build them into the system, into the processes, into the culture of the company, that you become outcome-driven, not feature-driven. And that's where you start to move away from feature factory mindset into an outcome-driven mindset. And it's much more fun to be in those kinds of companies where your contribution on every level can be seen and valued by others in your team and by the leadership. All right, I think that's all I have for today. Let's see. If somebody's on the stream and has a question, now is the time. And then we'll wrap up because it's Friday and the weekend is ahead. Let's see. All right, no questions today. But that's all right. I'm kind of spontaneous with these streams for now. Maybe that's a good time to talk a little bit about the streams as well. I was thinking of scheduling a couple things in advance, which is probably what I'm going to start doing soon. But for now, the purpose is just to start getting into the habit of streaming, talking about the issues that I'm passionate about, and starting to build that process of it's a part of my workflow where I turn on the camera, say hello to you, and we talk about the topic like we discussed today. So if you have any idea of like the tactical advice that you want to get, or strategic advice, or any other form of things, anything that relates to business mindset, leadership, technical architecture, and software engineering in general, let me know. And it's been a pleasure to stream for you. I appreciate you I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you real soon on the next stream. Have a lovely weekend.